Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of From Sacko to Shiva, presented by 816 Podcasting. On today's episode, we have the return of the host, Anthony Mayorino. We recap Week 3, recap injuries from around the league, and give real Mirage plus waiver wire ads. Well, Anthony, welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be back. I'm excited to be back.
Yeah?
Yeah, did my homework.
Man, I know you were kind of iffy about it before the season started during preseason, and then once the season started, I know you're like, oh man, I'm missing out.
Yeah, I regretted it, but at the same time, like, you and Tom do such a good job. And by the way, congratulations to you guys. You had 158 views on one. You have 2 over 100 now, one that's right there. You guys are doing good work, especially just starting out with friends and family.
Yeah,
seems like you're getting an actual good viewership now.
I'm trying to push it on every format that I can right now. Like all my friends from different leagues and all that. One of my leagues that is like a national league from people just around the U.S. I like every week I post it in our chat and people like listening to it on the way home from work.
How many people listen? Like just at work, like having someone like Christine come up to me who I didn't even know was in the fantasy football, just like, hey, I got a question for you. You got to answer this fantasy football question, and I was like, then I put it on the podcast. Yep. But I tried to get you guys a cake. I swear to God, it's gonna have 100 on it. Walmart's like all out. They didn't even have cheesecake. I was like, cookie cake, nothing.
Man, I told him a goal, and this was after week 2, I think, that by week 8 on one of our episodes, I want 500 views. Like, that's a goal of mine. It may sound like a steep goal, and for some of you listeners, like, oh, there's people out there that get millions of views in hours. Man, you got to realize we're starting off small. That's one of my goals. I was like, on week 8, I want 500 views on one video.
When you start out with just friends and family and just on YouTube, because SoundCloud, our SoundCloud account's just there to get us on Stitcher, because, we get maybe 3 views a week at tops, so nobody really uses SoundCloud.
It is pretty interesting, though, that when I share, people seem to get back at me quicker. So, like, I'll put it into one of my other websites where I play on, and within a day or two, somebody's tagging me, is this really you? I've got some questions for you. Can you help me out? And it's amazing that people actually listen to us and get some valuable information. Yeah,
I love that our mailbag every week is just continuously growing, and we're just getting more and more feedback and questions. Although this last week, I won't lie, I kind of let some people down. Other people, I really helped them blow up. It kind of happens that way. Christine, I'm sorry. Like, who would have known Rivers was going to throw 3 picks?
Well, you didn't let her down because her other option was Cam Newton.
Yeah, that was.
You're choosing between garbage and extra hot garbage. So.
I believe I got the extra hot garbage pick on that one.
Me too. I played him too.
That hurts. I played him also.
If you can't play him against New Orleans.
Yeah,
it's a little scary.
Cam Newton's completely droppable. I'm not playing him at all the rest of the season.
Do you think you could get anything for him trade-wise?
No.
I don't think so either. I think
you might be able to get a kicker.
The only good thing is the way he was using McCaffrey in the game, the quick little dump ball. That's something that we haven't seen from Cam Newton. But I don't want anything to do with him, even though I have him. I think I might drop him too.
Is it maybe just the injury, or do you think this is a year-long trend? Because he could get healthy.
If you look at Cam Newton before this year and all that, even on his MVP year was his highest percentage completion. And I think it was like 59%. Like his completion percentage has always just been awful. Every NFL QB though, like that are franchise QBs, if you look over their career, they're all 60% or plus completion percentage. And that's just kind of like the standard across the board. And Cam Newton just doesn't have that. How he became the MVP that year was based off of rushing. It wasn't that he threw for a bunch of yards or all that. He had 35 touchdowns that year.
Well, yeah, but he could get back to rushing now. Obviously, now his ankle's hurt, but I'm just saying, do you see him getting back there, or do you think this is
no? I don't think he's in the NFL for more than 4 more years.
I think what the Carolina offensive coordinators are doing is taking that running ability away from him and forcing him to be a pocket passer. And when he only completes 59% or less, that means he's going to struggle because the rushing is what saved him in a lot of games.
Getting back to that MVP season, he had like the 3rd or 2nd easiest schedule of any quarterback that year, too.
Yeah.
That's something to think about.
He was fantastic that year, too.
Yeah, the NFC South was garbage.
Another thing, though, I think that's one of the main reasons, though, why McCaffrey is still a viable option is because Cam Newton needs that dump-off option because his shoulder is so shot. Like, the thing is he doesn't have that strength in his arm because of his shoulder, like, to even throw the deep ball anymore. Like, when he throws it, he's off by wide margins, and you're just like, wow, like, how are you still playing right now?
Yeah, he's not an accurate passer, so that affects everything and everybody in this offense.
It's almost like he has to relearn how to throw the ball again.
Yep, new offense, relearn how to throw, and try and stay in the pocket and pass, which is not his strong suit. So we'll see.
And not to mention, he's also lost Olsen. Benjamin's hurt.
Yeah, those are huge.
I'm just saying, drop Cam Newton. He's wasting a roster spot that could be for somebody else with potential. In fact, I would take Brissett over him, and I would take Watson over him right now.
So let me ask you a quick question before we get into recap. Who do you think the top 5 QBs were this week?
Top 5 QBs this week?
This is a trick question because I looked it up, and I know who they are.
It's
Brady.
Tom Brady's number 1.
Yeah.
Number 2 is Case Keenum. Number 3 is Jacoby Brissett. Number 4 is Blake Bortles.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Isn't Kirk Cousins in top 5?
Yeah, he's number 5.
Yeah.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Actually, this was posted.
I knew Case Keenum was the one he was trying to get us with.
These stats were posted before that game. I know he had 28.4 fantasy points, Kirk Cousins. So looking at these stats, that would put him over Brissett. So that would put Kirk Cousins 3rd. But then you still have Jacoby Brissett 4th, Blake Bortles 5th, Case Keenum 2nd.
Keenum
what
was
a
on
crazy
fire.
week. And
Yeah.
it's been a bad
Tampa
year for
Bay doesn't have
quarterbacks.
a bad defense. Like don't get upset about that. But it doesn't mean I'm going out there to go pick up Case Keenum or anything like that. But it does give me confidence that maybe now he has that rhythm that he needed after that first and that first week he had against Pittsburgh wasn't even that terrible. Like it's just not fantasy relevant. But it gives me faith that I can start Diggs and Thielen.
Exactly. It doesn't give you faith for Keenum. It gives you faith for his receivers.
And then look at what Dalvin Cook did on the ground too with not having a loaded box against him.
And here's another thing about Keenum is he was actually a starting quarterback for an NFL team last year. So he does know how to run an offense and he can make completions. But the weapons that he has in Minnesota is really, really good. I mean, with Dalvin Cook, with Stephon Diggs, with Adam Thielen, and Rudolph, those are all really good weapons to have.
You know, interesting fact, I know this is kind of off topic, but Adam Thielen, when he was in college, his college coach, or like the college he was going to, he wanted to go to Minnesota because he's born and raised in Minnesota. He's a Vikings fan, whole 9 yards. He wanted to go to Minnesota school. And when he was there, the coach was like, they weren't going to give him a scholarship. They were like, hey, you're coming as a walk-on unless you switch to a different position. And he had other scholarship offers to other schools, but they wouldn't let him go as a wide receiver. He's like, no, I want to be a wide receiver. And he just stuck it out, went to Minnesota, became there. And then when he went to what was getting drafted, they were saying, hey, you need to switch positions to something else, maybe like safety or something like that. You're just too small. You're not fast enough and all that. And look what this kid has done. Perseverance, man. Like, you have your dream and you just followed it. You told F you to everybody that, like, said no to you. I was like, man, that kid's inspiring.
I agree.
And he's a good player now.
Yeah. Like, it's one of those things. There's people that are naturally talented, and then I will always take the person who works for their talent over the naturally talented person because he knows what he has to do to get there and keep it. That naturally talented person never had that moment where they weren't talented. They never had that down moment. So when they hit that low, they don't know how to get back to that high, where Thielen's always going to be working for it.
That being said, you don't ever take Eric Decker over like Odell Beckham. You know, Eric Decker is one of those guys that has to work for it. Odell's one of those naturally talented. So just so we're clear.
Well, we know who he's drafted next year.
Adam Thielen, baby.
I'm not opposed to it. I'm just not going to spend a high draft pick.
I mean, he's a fantastic. He turned himself into a fantastic athlete, and he's shown that he has the heart to stay in the NFL and make plays. So that, I mean, he's fantastic.
Yeah. All right, guys. Let's get into the weekly recap. All right. We're going to start off with Denver at Buffalo. I know we have a story that we want to get into on this one. Anthony Maiorino, let's hear it.
I set Shady McCoy for Javarius Allen, which did not end up going well. But the reason I did it is I was going back, because I know, Tom, you've said in other podcasts that you start your starters. You start like the top 3-4 rounds, no matter what, matchup proof. Well, Chase's first year in the league, I told him this. Like, he would, because Chase knew football. Like, he watched the draft, did the combine, everything. He just never did fantasy. So when I moved up here, I was like, bro, who's your fantasy team? Like, who's your league? He's like, I don't play fantasy. I was like, we're playing fantasy. Like, get some people together. I got to get in the league. And so it was his first year. He knows football, but he didn't know fantasy. So, like, every week he'd come to me like, should I play this player or this player? Which I don't know why he did it, because he never took my advice. But the one week he did, he wanted to sit Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson was hurt, And he's like, listen, I know they're saying he's going to play this week. I want to play this guy. And I remember whoever he said wasn't even like a top 25 wide receiver that week. I just was like, you're stupid. You play Calvin Johnson if he comes back. Like, you have to play your star. And I remember that week he started Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson got 0 points. He was in there, I guess, as a distraction with a foot
one
injury.
target.
Yeah. And the guy he said blew up, was like the third best receiver that week or something like that. It was crazy.
I forget who it was, too, but I was just like, and I lost that week, too.
So I tried to be Chase this week. I tried to sit LaShawn McCoy for Javarius Allen. Bit me in the butt.
Hey, you listen to me, and maybe it's just karma biting you in the butt now, like for that one time.
Yeah,
years later.
The groin injury, the foot injury. He's going up against Denver, who made Zeke look so pedestrian.
Mm-hmm. That's one of those weird game scripts where you never know what's going to happen. Jacksonville, that Baltimore-Jacksonville, you get behind, you would think that Javarius Allen would catch 12 balls, get you some points, but for some reason they stopped.
Every drive, it seemed like they had a different back.
Interesting fact, though, in standard PP, like in a normal PPR league, though, I told you my ceiling for McCoy was 13 points. He got 13 points.
I said I don't see him getting under 10 just because of usage.
Yeah.
But he's not going to get to like 15.
Yeah.
He said, I have him at 13.
Well, he's one of those powerhouse backs that are always going to be involved in a passing game, going to get some rushing yards. He's never going to come out of the game unless he's hurt or needs a breather.
Yeah. Well, so who's covering this week? I know Tolbert had almost split carries, right?
Yeah, it was almost split. I'm not really too focused on Tolbert. I think it was just based off of a game script a little bit. They wanted a bruiser. McCoy had those lingering injuries. I don't think they wanted him to have that. Plus, Tyrod Taylor was doing it. It doesn't sound like great stats, but 213 on 20 completions out of 26 attempts, 2 TDs, no interceptions, 8 rushes for 13 yards. He was just efficient all the way across the board against that tough Denver defense. But one of my biggest takeaways is Charles Clay, who is still less than 35% owned across all leagues. 6 targets, 6 receptions, touchdown. There's so many injuries out there, guys. I was beating on Tyrod Taylor or Charles Clay week 1, week 2. I'm saying you need to get him, pick him up. Like if you're having tight end troubles, if you have Tyler Eifert, he's going to be out for multiple weeks. Charles Clay's an option. He's somebody that I'd be looking at. And then Jordan Matthews actually had 5 targets, which I was impressed by because just against that no-fly zone for Denver, I was like, 5 targets, 3 receptions, 61 yards. McCoy, like I said, 13 total fantasy points was just, he was efficient with what he got, I suppose. Just against that Denver defense, you can't expect him to have one of his 100-yard games. But on the other side of the ball, Simeon just struggled. 40 attempts, 24 completions, 2 interceptions. Just looked awful. But my biggest takeaway from this is if CJ Anderson gets hurt, pick up Jamal Charles now if you have him. Handcuff him if he's available because Jamal Charles, 9 carries, 56 yards, touchdown. That's Jamal Charles' thing, 5.5 yards per carry. Look at what he's doing. There's no reason you shouldn't be starting him. I know that's what his career average is. What, 5.5?
Yeah. Yep. CJ did go out with an injury, or was he just not being used?
They were just splitting.
They split.
It was 50-50.
8-9, right?
But CJ Anderson, in his career, has never played a full 16 games. The most games he has played, I believe, is 13 in the season.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
So CJ Anderson, I'm just saying, he's never been able to hold that whole workload as a feature back. And Jamal Charles, I know he's injury prone too, but you know when you get him and you're playing him, that guy has top 15 upside with Denver right now. For the RBs. I'm just saying I'd get him. And then you got Thomas and Sanders who always do what they do. A lot of targets. Sanders, 15 targets, 7 receptions, 75 yards. I know it's not great in that offense and all that with no TDs if you're looking at standard, but PPR, I want that all day. That's 14 points. And then Thomas had 15 points, 6 receptions on 9 targets, 98 yards.
You have to like that even when Simeon struggled, you still had good days out of your top 2 wideouts right there.
Yeah, and Buffalo, for some reason, at home, their defense just plays a lot better.
I think one of the things that you're realizing is that Simeon has eyes for the wide receivers, and they're going to get their 6 catches every week.
Yeah.
The other thing with Jamal Charles is he's guaranteed at least 10 carries just to give Anderson a break. And if he averaged 5.1 this season so far, that's 50 yards. That's 5 points in any league.
Yeah.
You get a couple catches in there with him, and they haven't used him in that way yet. He's a solid pickup.
Yeah. If you have any running back issues or all that, maybe you're stacked at wide receiver, and you don't have any depth at running back, pick up Charles. Like, I know it's not going to be like a great start week to week. Like, maybe you drafted Powell. Like, obviously, I'm taking Charles over Powell. If Powell's out there, he's a good pickup too. But the problem with Jamal Charles is he's not going to be a number one back. And I think Powell has more of an opportunity to be a number one back.
I think Charles is more of a handcuff with just way better upside if Anderson does get hurt.
Yeah, he's definitely the handcuff.
Yeah. All right. That's about all I got for that game. All right, Tom, what do you got?
I'll go. We already touched on this one a little bit, so I'll go to New Orleans at Carolina. I think the takeaway from this one is Cam Newton. He struggled all day. 17 of 26 for 167 yards and 3 interceptions. He actually got pulled in the fourth quarter after he threw those interceptions. Stewart, he was a solid workhorse, 12 for 57. He does what he normally does. And then McCaffrey was a star in the passing game this week. 11 targets, caught 9 of them for 101 yards. I think that's somebody that you want to look to going forward. Kelvin Benjamin got hurt after 2 targets. Devin Funchess might be the guy to go get now. He had 10 targets in this game.
The MRI did come back. No serious damage done to his knee.
They're still going to rest him for some amount of time. We're just not sure how much. Funchess, 10 targets, caught 4 of them for 58 yards. It's not a good ratio, but if he's the go-to guy, he's the go-to guy. On the New Orleans side, you had Drew Brees being Drew Brees. 22 of 29 for 220 and 3 touchdowns.
Now, was this in Carolina or in New Orleans?
In Carolina.
Now, one thing that I was had questions about before we came into this week on that game is everybody was high on Carolina's defense. Like, oh, it's elite again. But they had faced 2 easy teams. They faced an elite team, and they looked bad. Yeah,
Breeze made him look silly. But again, if you give the ball to another opposing team 3 more times than you normally would, that's a recipe for getting disaster. Beat. Yeah. Then Mark Ingram finished the day with 14 carries, 56 yards, 2 catches for 30. He seems to be the lead back in this one, even though nobody wants to admit it here. Then you have Alvin Kamara. He had 2 carries for 37 yards and a touchdown. He had a pretty good day. 5 targets, 3 catches for 5 yards. He seems to be like the explosive back out of the backfield. That's how I would look at it.
They need to just try and trade Peterson or trade Ingram, do whatever they need to do, and just feature Kamara. Like, he's their future in that offense.
As far as fantasy purposes go, I don't want anything to do with Adrian Peterson. If I have him, I'm dropping him.
Yeah.
I don't want him on my team. Mike Thomas had a good showing, 8 targets, 7 for 87 and a touchdown. I think that's what we see more going forward. I think he's going to be Drew Brees' favorite target.
And Snead comes back this week. He traveled with him to London, or will travel with him to London, but there's no guarantee he plays this week.
We have 2 other guys to mention real quick. Brandon Coleman, 1 target for 11 yards. He was the big pickup of the week, last couple weeks, just because he's part of that offense. And Colby Fleener had a bad game. 1 target, 1 catch for 21 yards. I think the takeaway is Newton struggled, and we might have to move on from Cam Newton.
Do you drop Coleman now that Snead's coming back?
Yeah, I think Coleman was just a fill until you get the more explosive Snead.
Do you drop Fleener, or do you hold on to him for 1 more week when Snead comes back to see if he can?
I think you have to keep him just because it's so shallow there.
Yeah, the tight end position is really, really shallow, so I think he's a keeper for now.
I agree.
All right, who's got the next game?
Anthony, what do you got?
Ravens and Jaguars. 8:30 game here in the Central Time Zone in London. Easy to watch. Apparently, Verizon paid the NFL $21 million to stream it worldwide, so they did. Obviously, the big story here is Jaguars, but let's start with the Ravens. Joe Flacco, 8 for 18, 28 yards, 2 interceptions. Finished with a -3 fantasy points. 6 consecutive games in a row, going back to last year, that he's had 15 points or fewer. So, I mean, even in 2 QB leagues, it's hard to start Joe Flacco for me. Alex Collins led Baltimore in rushes. He had 9 rushes for 82 yards. Terrence West only had 6. Javorius Allen had 8. It seemed like they had a different back out there every drive, and I know those weren't long drives. It seemed like they were switching a lot. Jeremy Macklins had 13 points the last 2 weeks. He only had 5 targets, 1 reception, 8 yards. He was still the most targeted receiver, along with Mike Wallace, who also had 5.
Didn't he leave with an injury, though, too?
He left with an injury, but he came back.
Okay.
Finished the game, got a few more targets. Just didn't do anything. Obviously, if your quarterback's struggling and has a negative 3 points, you're not going to do much as a receiver.
I know Boye and Ramsey were just looking good on the defensive side for the Jags.
Absolutely. Javorius Allen actually led the team in targets. So I wouldn't panic on him yet. I would keep him, maybe even buy low on him for me.
I still love him. He's going to be the PPR guy in the offense that's going to throw the ball.
Yeah, the biggest worry for me is Baltimore's defense. Because they were supposed to be a really good defense coming into the year, but now you're wondering, was it just because they played the Bengals in Cleveland week 1 and 2?
They also lost their really, really good run-stopping defensive lineman. I think it's Brandon Williams. And they had an injury to a linebacker, and I think that's what you saw going into this game.
Yeah, because, they allowed 10 points through weeks 1 and 2. They allowed 44 to Jags. So, let's talk about the Jaguars. Blake Bortles had a day. Finished as the number 4 QB on the day. 20 for 31, 244, and 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, no fumbles. Man, this was the first time he's put up numbers or the second time he's put up numbers like that with the lead. Like, he gets a lot of garbage time points. This is only the second time leading through those numbers. And even
dropping the knowledge.
Yeah. Leonard Fournette, 17 for 59, a touchdown. He had 4 targets, 3 receptions, 21 yards. I like how much they're getting him involved in the passing game. I didn't see that coming into the season. So.
Nobody did. I don't think he had maybe 3 targets all throughout his career at LSU.
Yeah, they were talking in the game about him having underrated hands as he's almost dropping the ball.
Yeah. He ran well there. Yeah, he looked good.
Chris Ivory got some work, but nothing really to write home about. I think he's just your handcuff here.
Yep.
Marquise Lee, 7 targets, 4 receptions, 65 yards. You had the big story here was the tight end, Mercedes Lewis, 5 targets, 4 receptions, 3 touchdowns. He was actually started at 0.03% of ESPN leagues, so the 0.03%, you're geniuses.
That was his family.
I think they said he had more touchdowns in that one game than he's had all last year.
In 3 years.
Oh, 3 years.
It was the last 3 years. He had more touchdowns in this game than he did in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Is that real or Mirage, though?
I don't want to trust him.
It's Mirage, but seeing as how we're really shallow in tight ends, you might have to just go with it.
Yeah. I'm going to say Mirage. I'm going to stay away from it.
Well, I got another Mirage for you. Allen Hurns, 3 targets, 3 receptions, 20 yards, and a touchdown. It's crazy to see how he kind of wasn't getting any kind of targets or anything, and this is going to be one of Blake Bortles' best games of the year. So the touchdown saved his day. I'm not sure I would want to own him here.
Yeah, I think Marquise Lee is a guy that I'd want to own, and if I had to have one of the two, I'd want Marquise Lee.
Yes.
I got to say, I'm buying into the Jaguars here. Their new head coach, Doug Maroney, they got Tom Coughlin in, and they're just doing, I don't know if it's because everyone's stacking the box against Fournette, and because that's exactly what the Ravens did. They dared Blake Bortles to beat him, and Blake Bortles went out and beat him. Who would have known?
Yeah, I honestly don't think it's that side of the ball that's doing what they need to, winning the games. I think it has to do with their defense. Their defense, they spent a lot of money on it. And they've had spent a lot of draft capital over the last couple of years on their defense, top draft capital. And it's all coming together and finally clicking. I think it has to be their defense that gives their offense that opportunity to choose to run. And like I said, week 1, Fournette on, 81% of the snap or his carries, he had 8+ people in the box.
And that was against a good defense too in Houston, right?
Yeah.
I'm starting to buy into this offense a little bit.
Well, it's got to be improved from last year. There's no question about that. Even losing Allen Robinson.
One thing that I was actually reading, though, is they were saying maybe Allen Robinson was the poison in that locker room because they said he was just so negative all the time after every game, every practice, just in that locker room. And now that he's injured, they're saying maybe that's kind of all right, well, now we don't have to worry about what he says. It's on us, and we're not.
Yeah, you can see that even in his body language, when Blake Bortles misses him or something.
Yeah.
When he's wide open, he'll just throw his hands up.
On that joint practice with Tampa Bay.
Just stomp back to the line. Come on, man.
You mean a wide receiver being a diva again? Never happens.
Never.
The one thing I do have to say about this game is that 85,000 people showed up to watch our version of the NFL, which I thought was amazing.
Yeah, and they were all Jags fans too. But the Jags, like, maybe they should just go to London. Maybe that should be the first team in London because they love them there, and every time the Jags go there, they always do well. And there's already 3 teams in Florida, so I mean, I'm sure they could manage to lose one team to London.
So we call them the London Jaguars?
Yeah. I mean, they'd probably want to keep it, the Jags. I mean,
let me ask you guys, do you think we should have a team over there?
Yes.
A permanent team?
Yeah, why not?
Here's my thought process, and y'all can call me crazy.
Do you see how many people watched, like, were at that stadium? Yeah, I think they could absolutely be a great market.
You know how, like, everybody's always complaining about their team having to bye week or having to go over to London and all that, how that hurts the team? I think 1 week out of the year, there should almost be like the majority of the bye weeks for one portion of the year. But 1 week out of that season, they should have X amount of teams go to London, Brazil, wherever. And then during that week, there's just those games are played there. And then they come back and then they get their bye week immediately after that. So have like six teams, 3 games in different parts of the country or different parts of the world and have it done that way. That way, like, you don't have to worry about these teams constantly having to go over there. And then you're just hitting a bunch of different markets all at once.
It's a good idea, and I think that's what the NFL is trying to do with these games overseas. You know, they see that the NFL can be a global market, and that's what they're pushing for.
Yeah.
Who's got the next game?
All right, moving on. I got Pittsburgh at Chicago. All right, so this is a kind of interesting one because Howard and Cohen, man, both of them balled out. Cohen had like a 75-yard touchdown called back because he stepped out of bounds after 35 yards. And it was just barely, man. It was crazy. And that was in overtime. And then Howard on the next play is like, don't worry, I got this. And then runs for the touchdown. So Jordan Howard, 5 targets, 5 receptions, 26 yards, 23 carries, 138 yards, 2 TDs. Tariq Cohen, 12 carries, 78 yards, 4 targets, 4 receptions, 24 yards. These guys, 1-2 punch combo. Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman, like, is that how it's looking? I mean, they've been doing it against decent teams, and if you looked at the stats for the whole team, they actually led the team in targets, both of them, on the receiving side. And
Howard was the receiving leader, wasn't he?
Yes, and then Cohen was their
number 2. Yeah,
like they weren't passing a bunch, but they were just efficient on the ground because you have to worry about the explosiveness of Cohen, and then Howard's just that bruiser that he was last year. Like he's looking good, and people were like, my question is do you sell high on Howard now, or is he real? Like,
I say real, and kudos to the people that stuck with him because he was started 93%.
I tried to pick him up too, man. I was trying to buy so low on him.
53% started him this week, and for those people who stayed with him, congratulations, man, because I thought he was borderline droppable.
I actually tried trading.
I think it was that shoulder injury. I think he's real.
Before this week, I tried trading. Like, I mean, it doesn't look that bad now, but I tried trading Sammy Watkins for Jordan Howard before this week.
Yeah, you can't like the fact that he's in a timeshare, but he's going to be the goal line back, and that's for me. And he's going to get the main. So in standard leagues, he has a real big.
And Tariq Cohen looks like he has to have that breakout play, like that one breakout play, to be almost relevant. And I'm not saying he's not relevant. The guy is just like, he's unreal. But I'm just worried that you have a higher ceiling with Cohen, but a lower floor where Howard. I mean, it's just safe all the way across, I think.
I'm actually going to sell Howard for whatever I can get because I see some tough running coming up. And I don't think that he'll be involved in a passing game as much as he has been. But Cohen, and here's another weird thing that I think if you have both of these guys, you could start both of these guys. Yeah. Because you're going to get Howard, pounding it, and then you're going to get Tariq Cohen, little flares out to him in the out and let him run.
And then on the other side of the ball, you got Bell, 15 carries, 61 yards, touchdown, 7 targets, 6 receptions, 37 yards. Then Antonio Brown, like I said last week, he's Antonio Brown, 14 targets, 10 receptions, 110 yards, touchdown. And then, like I said, Martavis Bryant, man, like just wow, on the road. He's getting the targets, 8 targets, 2 receptions, 30 yards. Jesus Christ, dude, why can't you do it on the road like you do at home? That makes me so worried about Bryant. And like I was telling you earlier, on that trade and all that, yeah, you should trade Bryant if you can get something of good value. Like, if you could get Zach Ertz for Bryant, you should do it. Like, wait till after a home game, but do it then.
Yeah, and Bryant's always going to be the second or third fiddle in that offense, so you never really know when he's going to be the guy they go after, the guy they want to get passes to. Where you go Martavius for Ertz, Ertz is going to get the ball. That's how I look at it.
He's had 8+ targets in the past 3 games for Ertz. I'm just saying it's...
The one question I have in this game is, do you think Le'Veon Bell is just starting to round into form, or is this what we're going to see from him going forward?
I mean, it's not bad fantasy production. I mean, it's not the greatest, but I think he's starting to come back. I just think there's something going on with Pittsburgh because they don't seem like that elite offense like they were. Like, the only person that still seems elite is Brown.
The game was away too, so the splits are for Roethlisberger.
Yeah. All right. Next up, who you got?
How about Tampa Bay at Minnesota? We touched on a couple of the Minnesota guys already, so I'll start with Tampa.
Did you take Tampa in that game?
I can't remember.
I have it written down somewhere. I know I took Minnesota.
I'll cover it quick while you look it up. So, you got Winston, 28 for 40 for 328, 2 TDs, 3 interceptions. Now, when Tampa Bay throws the ball 40 or more times, they usually end up losing. It's one of those weird stats. And that's what happened here. Jacquizz Rodgers had 5 carries for 15 yards, which means he struggled. This was not a running opportunity for him. The team had a total of 9 carries, so they abandoned the run really, really early, which should have meant more targets and more yards for Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson. Mike Evans had 12 targets, caught 7 of them for 67 yards. Deshaun had 7 targets, caught 4 of them for 84 and a long touchdown. I would have thought if they passed for 40 times, they would have had better numbers, but it's still pretty decent. And you had Cameron Brate getting involved. 4 targets, 4 catches for 33 yards and a touchdown. And then O.J. Howard, we'll just mention him real quick because he's the rookie, and he caught 1 ball for 12. And I think Brate is going to be the receiving tight end there going forward. And then we talked about Case Keenum already. 25 of 33 for 369, 3 touchdowns. Actually ran the ball 6 times for 18 yards just to keep drives alive. Dalvin Cook had another big week, 27 carries, 97 yards and a touchdown. 5 targets, caught all 5 for 72 yards. So he's involved in all facets of the game. He's going to be in there whenever they're 3rd and 15 or 2 and short. So he's always going to be there. Stephon Diggs did man things. 11 targets, 8 catches for 173, 2 touchdowns. Thielen, we already talked about him. 8 targets, caught 5 of them for 98 yards. And the disappointment in this offense was Kyle Rudolph. 2 targets, 1 for 4 yards. Like I said, Case Keenum looked like a real quarterback in this game, and he found all his weapons, and they put the pressure on Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay couldn't answer.
It's crazy to think that Bradford week 1 balled out. Keenum week 2 struggled in Pittsburgh, and then, didn't do terrible, and then week 3, Keenum just looks good. So is it the offense itself, or is it the QBs that are making this offense?
Well, I think having the extra time to prepare for Keenum instead of just being thrust in there the day before, he got to prepare and and the coaches also probably got to see what he did well and what he feels comfortable with, and he probably designed the offense around that stuff.
I like I said, my faith is restored in that offense now.
There's no reason to panic on Tampa Bay's side. That was a tough matchup. We knew that going in, and that was just Minnesota controlling the ball and then just getting up early, staying up.
Well, the only real guy that I would say would be, you might be worried about would be Jacquizz Rodgers, but you already knew going into the season that he was going to have some tough matchups. And then in a couple weeks, Doug Martin comes back, and we'll see how that shakes out.
To me, Jacquizz Rodgers is droppable now. I have Doug Martin, and I have Jacquizz Rodgers starting in place of him, but his matchups now are just bad until Martin comes out. So to me, trade him if you can, or drop him.
You're not going to get anything in return for him. I would probably drop him.
Yeah, he's droppable for me, 100%.
He's still going to be valuable going forward, just not, 5 for 15 is not a good stat line.
And if Doug Martin is one of your lead backs, so maybe keep him as a handcuff, but he's not really startable the next couple games. So.
And we both took Minnesota because you like the home.
Damn, I'm good.
We actually both finished 8-6 this week, not including tonight's game, which was kind of a rough week for us because last week we were on point. Like I think you were 11 or no, I was 11-4, and you were 12-3.
All right.
This
so
was a really bad week.
For prognosticators, this was one of the toughest weeks that we've had so far.
Yeah, this is the worst week we've had so far.
Let me just ask a non-football question because this is what I do. Are you guys coffee or tea drinkers?
Sweet tea all day.
Both.
And I like the loose leaf tea too. I don't do the bags or anything like that.
I am a Dunkin' Donuts hot tea with cream and sugar. That's how I drink my tea. No coffee, just tea.
I like my iced caramel macchiatos from Starbucks. I'm one of those. And I won't lie, I love my Red Diamond sweet tea from Walmart. I don't know what it is. It's just like, it's so good.
I can't stand you high-end Starbucks people. I don't know how we're friends.
My girlfriend loves Starbucks, so we go there she probably goes there 5 days a week. So, but I never get anything because, I feel loyalty towards Dunkin' Donuts.
I can support that. Like, I hate going to Walmart because I would just prefer going to a company that treats their employees better, like Hy-Vee or Price Chopper. Like, that's just how I am.
Mm-hmm. All right. Who's got the next game?
I got Kansas City, LA Chargers.
Do you want to do this one yet, or you want to wait? Because we got quite a bit more games. You can save that one for near last.
No, I'm going to talk.
All right.
I got to talk about Chiefs Kingdom, baby.
All right.
This is why we're here. It wasn't the best game, to be honest. We got up early. We had all those picks, 3 interceptions, but he threw 2 in the first half, and we got points right off him. But it seemed like the second half, we couldn't put him away, and they were trying to give it away, so it was kind of weird. But fantasy-wise, good day for Alex Smith. He was the number 1 QB coming into this week. He is no longer. Obviously, that's Tom Brady. 16 for 21, 155 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 rushes, 9 yards. Just doing what you actually expected Alex Smith to do to start the year. The big story on the Kansas City side has to be Travis Kelce. 1 target, 1 reception. So 1.1 fantasy points. It seemed like he was in the doghouse. Andy Reid was really upset last week. It was his 4th consecutive game going back to the playoffs last year where he's had a unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. So it seemed like he was in the doghouse because Andy Reid's famous for finding ways to get his skilled players involved, whether it's the shovel pass up the middle to Kelce, giving him rushes. He finds a way to get you involved. So the fact that he had 1 target and 1 reception for me says that he's in the doghouse. You don't panic. I know it sucks for the 99.9% of you that started him because he was a tight end. He was 2nd tight end last week to Gronkowski, or was he number 1?
Either 1 or 2.
Yeah, I think it was Gronk.
He was
Kelce.
1 or 2.
It was Gronk, Kelce,
and then Ertz. Yeah.
And then Ertz.
But you don't panic, obviously. This was just a 1 game kind of slap on the wrist, I feel like. Kareem Hunt. Doing Kareem Hunt things. Through the first 3 games, there's only 1 person in history who has more fantasy points, and it's 2 more points. And it's Billy Sims. So you got to love Kareem Hunt, what he's doing this year. Coming into this week, he had, I think, 66 fantasy points. Or 64 fantasy points in PPR scoring. Last year, through 4 games, Ezekiel had 66. So, I mean, and he was the MVP last season. You got to love Kareem Hunt. It's crazy to look and see that only 96% of people start him. He's a start every week. 100%.
He was the rushing leader and rookie MVP, but he was not the MVP.
No, he's a fantasy MVP. Is what I'm saying.
Okay, sorry. I was like, Matt Ryan was
either
MVP.
way, Kareem Hunt is doing amazing things. And, I believe he's averaging 7.8 yards a carry, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, 17 carries yesterday for 173 yards or something.
If I have Kareem Hunt on my team, there's no offer you could make me.
I was going to ask, would you do Antonio Brown?
Not at all.
Le'Veon Bell?
Okay, what about Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell for Kareem Hunt?
Well, obviously, but nobody would make that decision.
I'm just hey, there's always a price on it, and once you show somebody, hey, it's a steep price, then you could be like, okay, well, instead of Kareem Hunt, then how about I give you Doug Baldwin for Le'Veon Bell because they're both struggling.
Yeah, I do that.
But you know what I mean? You use that as openings.
I always feel that everybody has a price. You just have to find a price that you're willing to do. And even if it is Kareem Hunt, there's an offer out there that could be made that would make you think about it.
Yeah, it would have to be something stupid, though. Something ridiculous, something where someone's really desperate and just throwing away good players who are struggling.
Listen, we're in the 816 area code. If you have Kareem Hunt, you could ask for any player or players that you want, and you probably would get them.
Absolutely. That's why I didn't get him this year. That's why I never get Travis Kelce.
There was plenty of opportunities for you to get Kareem Hunt.
No, I was wrong. You were wrong. We're all wrong. Nobody saw this.
No, I didn't see this, but I told you, I was like, he was top 10, like, easily, like, with top 5 upside, and that's what I said, like, and you thought I was crazy. I told you I was thinking about taking...
for putting him over Fournette and McCaffrey. I did.
Yeah, I was willing to take him, like, in the second round, but, like, I
thought he should be, that's where he should be, just behind those guys. I thought he was top 15, and, I mean, no, number 1.
I think I had him as 13 to start the season, and Chase had him at 12, I believe, when we did our first ranking.
Yep. And I said top 10, like, with top 5 upside, like, and I was like, you all can go back and listen to that, like.
So getting to the Chargers side of this, Phillip Rivers threw good yards, 237, because everybody's always on the Chiefs, but 3 interceptions really hurt his day. He only had 3 fantasy points, no touchdowns. Melvin Gordon injured. His right knee, his knee was hurt coming in. It's just they're saying it's knee soreness, so he didn't play much. He did get 17 attempts for 79 yards and a touchdown, and he got 2 targets with 0 receptions. But they took him out towards the end of the game for Brandon Oliver, who went 8 for 16, so only 2 yards per carry there. Nothing to really worry about. But in PPR, you have to care about the 6 targets he got for 4 receptions and 18 yards. So if Gordon gets hurt, Oliver is definitely a PPR pickup, but it sounds like it was just precautionary and that Gordon's going to be fine for playing next week. Here's my question to you guys. Before I do that, I guess we got to talk about Keenan Allen, just doing Keenan Allen things. 9 targets, 5 receptions, 61 yards. Obviously, he's the top guy on that. Benjamin had a good day, 8 targets, 5 receptions, 105 yards. But my question is about Hunter Henry. I'm panicking as a Hunter Henry. I have him in 2 leagues. I was really high on Henry this year. Week 1, 0 targets. Week 3, 0 targets. He had a good week last week. Are you guys panicking on Hunter Henry?
No, I just think it was game script. I think Kansas City knew they needed to focus on Allen, Henry, and Gordon. And once Gordon went out, Oliver's not that much of a threat, so now you get to really focus on Henry.
But 0 targets in 2 out of 3 weeks? That doesn't in any way concern you?
It probably changes because Rivers had 3 picks. Like, you're not targeting your...
But he still threw 40 passes.
The way I see it,
40 passes, not one went Henry's way, and he still had 237 yards.
And the way that I see it, just from watching the game, is Hunter Henry seems to be the better blocker between him and Antonio Gates. And when you get a lot of pass rushers on a team, the week 1, I think they played Denver. Is that right? Yeah, they got pass rushers out the wazoo. And now Kansas City has pass rushers out the wazoo. So I think that it was game plan for him to stay in and try and block them rather than getting him out in the...
Who did they play week 2? The Dolphins? They have a good front 7.
They
don't have Denver or Kansas City front 7. That's what I think.
They have Sue, Alonzo, and Wake. That's only notable players.
That's how I'm saying is...
Great player.
But he's not... He's a coverage linebacker. He's not...
Yeah.
And like I'm saying, that Denver and Kansas City have those pass rushers, and if you got to give Phillip Rivers a little bit more time, you're going to keep your tight end to help chip and do what they have to do to block those guys. I just think it's the game plan that got him out of balance.
Well, I'm going to go the other way, especially because he is in the AFC West where they have a lot of great pass rushers. I'm going to drop Hunter Henry this week. I really am.
That's what everybody did last week, and then they repicked him up for this week, and then
now they're going to drop him again.
Yep.
I kept him. I thought, I'll just see where he goes, see what happens. Week 2, I got excited. I didn't start him this week, and I'm glad I didn't because, man,
I had him in one league, and I had to start him, and I got 0 points, and I think I'm winning right now, but it's really, really close.
I don't mind having a bad fantasy week or 2, but having 0 targets is what blows me away. Like, you throw 40 passes, and not one went your way. That's worrisome for me. But that's all I have on that game. The only thing to really worry about is because I think Phillip Rivers is going to be fine. I don't think this injury is going to be bad. The reports are it's not bad, but you may look at picking up Brandon Oliver if you're a Melvin Gordon owner, just in case.
I'm not opposed to that.
No.
I got Cleveland at Andy. Crowell kind of, man. If I have Crowell, I'm dropping him. He had the easiest matchup, 12 carries, 44 yards. I know that's not like terrible stats, but like fantasy-wise, that's just irrelevant. Duke Johnson was very efficient. 2 carries, 23 yards, 6 catches on 7 targets, 81 yards. I'm just saying, like, I'd rather have Duke Johnson over Crowell rest of the season. Kenny Britt had 10 targets after being in the doghouse last week. 54 yards, 3 receptions, and a TD. He still looks so terrible, though. Like, so many drops. That was just, man, it was bad. And then Brissett on the other side of the ball. Crazy stat line for him. 17 of 24, 259, TD, 5 rushes, 14 yards, and 2 TDs. Man, like, just on the ground was working it, like, making Cleveland, like, just not, like, confused the whole time. And then T.Y. Hilton, 9 targets, 7 receptions, 153, and a TD. You're welcome, Clark Browning. Was that? Yeah, Clark?
Yeah, I think it was Clark.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. And then Jack Doyle, he had 5 targets, 2 catches, and 16 yards. Not very good for him. This game was kind of a little bit different than what everybody was expecting. But, I mean, Hilton finally had that breakout game. Other than that, I mean, I'm probably just going to look at Brissett in 2 QB leagues. Hilton, I mean, I'm still keeping him. I was trying to buy low on him before this week, obviously. I mean, do you sell high on him now?
If you can, I think you should.
Even with Luck practicing for the first time on Wednesday, is what it's report.
I mean, how many more times do you think he's going to hit 153 and a touchdown?
Let me ask you, what do you think you can get for T.Y. right now?
I think you could get something serviceable
with his upside, and because I still think people are still kind of low on him with Luck out. I don't think I would get anything that I would feel comfortable with trading T.Y. for, so I think I would keep him. But if someone made me the right offer and I had T.Y., like, sure. But I don't think I could make an offer to someone that they would accept.
Would you take Chris Hogan and...
How about just Chris Hogan?
I love that Damian Amendola came back this week.
I would probably take...
And Chris Hogan still had a good amount of targets. He had like 6 targets and 5 receptions or something.
Yeah. 6 for 4.
6 for 4, yeah. So he was still really targeted and still a good part of that offense. I love that because I was worried with Amendola coming back.
I would take
Chris Hogan for T.Y.
I would say, yeah, I would, because now we're seeing what Brady is going to do. His defense is horrible, so he's going to have to throw the ball a lot more, and that's gonna give Hogan opportunities.
All right, fair enough. All right,
yeah, and if you're in a league where, because I know Chris Hogan is like 60-70% leagues. If you're in a league where he's a free agent, pick him up.
Yeah,
actually, I picked him up last week, and then I dropped him for a different player who actually benefited. Like, I picked him up and dropped him 3 times already.
I was blown away that he dropped him in our league. I was like, there had to have been someone else. Like, he just had a great week for you. In a week, he started him, too.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a bad choice. You started him over, like, DeMarco Murray.
Yeah, I benched DeMarco Murray, who got, like, 3 points.
But he ended up being hurt. But still, I mean, great choice by you. And I can't believe you dropped him after that.
Well, I guess that brings me to my next matchup.
Yeah.
Houston at New England. So we just talked about it. Watson had a phenomenal game for him. 22 of 33, 301, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, rushed 8 times for 41 yards. He was the man in this game. He kept up with Brady every step of the way.
Yeah.
He actually looked good, and it hurts me to say that, but I think Watson is improving. The only questions I have is the New England defense really that bad?
They're that bad.
Well, if that's the case, then I'm playing every single guy I can against New England.
I mean, look at. I mean, I'm not saying Kansas City is bad. Obviously, they're not. Look at what Kansas City did. Look at what New Orleans did, even though it was garbage time. And look at what Watson did with a bad O-line against that team. They're running a 3-4 scheme right now, and they're not rushing the ball. They're not aggressive, and they just don't like. Their defense just looks outmatched every time against any O-line.
I wonder if...
And they got the same defensive coordinator from last year, and their team was dope last year on defense.
Last year, he looked like a rocket scientist.
Is Dante Hightower
It's all the injuries.
Difference?
There's more than just Hightower. They lost 2 D-backs, a couple linebackers, a few linemen. They got hit with so many injuries in the offseason, it was ridiculous.
They spent a lot of money signing Gilmore, and they were expecting to trade Malcolm Butler to clear up cap space and get something in return, and that never happened. So, I mean, it kind of like, for once, something didn't work out for the Patriots.
Yeah. Well, Lamar Miller, I'll cover him. 14 carries, 56 yards, 1 target, 1 reception for 7. I actually thought he would have a few more receptions in this game, and that would have helped out Clark Browning, but we know which way he went.
Hey, he went Hilton, and he listened to the right guy.
Here's my interesting play of this game. Deontay Foreman. He had 8 carries for 25 yards, 3 targets, caught 2 of them for 65 yards. It looks like he's starting to make plays over Lamar Miller. Keep an eye on Foreman. DeAndre Hopkins, 8 targets, 7 for 76. Still a pretty good day. I thought that New England would limit him a little bit, and it seems like they did. That was their plan. On to the New England side. Brady had a fantastic day. 25 of 35, 378, 5 touchdowns. Now, with Brady having such a big day, that means that somebody was going to have an off day, and that came with Mike Gillislee. 12 carries, 31 yards, no touchdowns. He is a TD-dependent guy. If he gets those touchdowns, he has a good week. If not, this is what you're going to see from him.
And we knew that coming into the season, too.
Right.
So.
James White, 5 carries, 17 yards. Only 1 target, caught it for 11 yards, which is surprising on a day where Brady throws for 378. Then we have Mike, the guy that I just talked about, Chris Hogan. 6 targets, 4 catches, 68 yards, 2 touchdowns. Fantastic day. I think that's what we're going to be seeing going forward just because New England's defense is bad and Brady needs targets to throw the ball to. Brandon Cooks, it's his birthday today, so he had a phenomenal day yesterday to celebrate. 7 targets, 5 catches, 131, and 2 touchdowns. That's the guy that everybody was hoping to see when they drafted Cooks. It's not going to happen every week. That's just...
Who would you rather have, Cooks or Hogan?
I want the steady guy. I'll take the Hogan side.
I'll take Hogan too. And let me give you 2 stats. I'm going to say something good about Cooks, but then I'm going to tear him down. Because I do like... I'm not high on Cooks at all, but I do like how it was the 4th quarter. The game's still kind of on the line. And that's when Tom Brady was throwing to Cooks. And so to go on him when it's that kind of situation, I love to see that. However, this guy's a real boom-bust guy. Like, I know he was drafted in the 2nd round for most leagues. He is not an everyday star for me. He's a real boom-bust. He's either top 5, it seems like, or he's bottom 45 was the stat I was reading. Where's the stat at? But
3 times last year he was top 5. All the other times he was outside the top 30.
He's real boomer bust.
Yeah.
So to me, it's weird because last week he had a great matchup. Didn't do so well.
He still had 3 targets.
Yeah. So it's weird to know when to play him. And his ownership or his percentage of being started is showing that. Like, he's only got started 70%. For a guy that went in the 2nd round, that's pretty low. He ended up being the wide receiver 2 this week behind Stephon Diggs.
And you got to remember, though, he caught the last touchdown with 23 seconds left to play in the game. So he really boosted his point numbers. Yeah. He put up the numbers late, too. Gronkowski, got to cover him. 10 targets, 8 catches for 89 yards and a touchdown. In this game, this was the 6th time that Tom Brady has threw for 5 or more touchdowns. He is 6-0 in those games. He's won every single game that he's thrown 5 or more touchdowns. And that's all I got in that game. Anybody got anything to add?
No, I think you got it.
On to the next one.
All right, next up I got Miami at New York Jets. Cutler threw 44 times, 26 completions, 220 TD, interception. Miami got manhandled this whole game. It was a garbage time TD. They couldn't run the ball. Jay Ajayi got hurt. They started limiting his workload when he came back just because of the game script. Devontae Parker looked bad through the first 3 quarters, but that's because he just had lack of targets. He finished with a touchdown as seconds were expiring. 8 of 10, 76 yards TD. Kenny Stills, 10 targets, though, for 4 receptions, 51 yards. Jarvis Landry led the team in targets, 11 targets, 6 receptions, 48 yards. My problem with Landry is he's like a pass-catching running back at this point. His yards per catch are less than 5 yards now. It's just, it doesn't look good. Where Parker, like I said, when it comes to those clutch moments, that's where Cutler's going. He's going to gunsling it. McCown, interesting maybe for 2 QB leagues, 18 of 23, 249 and a TD. Powell and Forte just, man, nobody looked like the clear number 1 back there. And then Robbie Anderson, 3 of 6, 95 yards, TD. Jermaine Kearse, 3 of 3, 42. And then Austin Seferian-Jenkins, who I said I liked last week, I like moving forward because what was the stat? 80% of the snaps, or 70 of like 79 snaps he was on the field for.
Yeah, he was
which
up there.
Coming after suspension, that's just great. He had 6 targets, 5 receptions, 31 yards. I know it's not a great stat line, but the targets are there, and he's catching the ball. I think you're going to see him utilized more so moving forward.
He's a cheap tight end that's available that's going to be involved.
Yeah, and I actually picked him up in a few leagues before this week just because the tight end depth. Like I was going after Witten and all that. Like I bid low on him, didn't get him. So I was like, okay, I can do an ad drop on ASJ and be okay with that. But really for that game, it was a
dud.
were manhandling Miami the whole game.
It was a dud for Miami, no question about that.
And I think it was a wake-up call to Miami, and I don't think that's how Miami will be moving forward. I think you will see an elite offense again.
Cutler and Jag get back on track?
Yeah. And I think you'll see that from Parker and then still moving forward.
I got 2 more games to cover. Anybody?
I got 2 more games too.
Okay. Anthony, you want to do one of mine?
No.
Okay.
I still got one left. But
All right.
go ahead, guys.
I'm going to go Atlanta at Detroit. This is a battle of 2 2-0 teams going into this one.
That was a great game.
Yeah, it was. I got to watch it, and it looked fantastic. Matt Ryan, 24 of 35, 294, 2 touchdowns. He threw 3 interceptions, though. The Detroit's defense came alive and kept them in this game. Devontae Freeman, 21 carries, 106, 1 touchdown, 3 catches for 32 yards. His backup, Tevin Coleman, 6 carries, 46 yards, 5 targets, 3 for 43. Solid game for him. Julio was the most targeted guy here, 12 targets, caught 7 for 91. Sanu is the second guy to Julio, 6 targets, caught 4 for 28 and 1 touchdown. Just barely got over the goal line on that play. Hooper, just going to mention him, 2 targets, 1 for 9, nothing special. Then we go to Stafford. Stafford was one of my starts of the week. It kind of let me down, but it's still decent. 25 of 45 for 264, 1 touchdown, rushed 2 times for 19 yards. And for some reason, the running backs here struggled, and I would have thought that they matched up better at Atlanta than with any of the other teams. Amir Abdullah, 14 for 47, 3 targets, caught all 3 for 39 yards, which saved his day a little bit. Theo Riddick had 9 targets, only caught 4 of them for 38 yards. I would have thought those two had a better day, and my DFS teams
like
did too.
Everybody this week was saying to start Theo Riddick against that. They're apparently the worst against passing RB. So
yeah, it was tough
really
day.
Underwhelming. I do want to say I think Devontae Freeman is the most reliable fantasy running back for me. I think, in my opinion, there's not a defense in the league that can stop that offense. And with that passing attack, I don't even care that he's, with Coleman taking touches and drives every now and then. To me, Devontae Freeman is the safest play every single week.
Well, you can't stack the line because they have the wide receivers. You can't bring safeties up to stop him, so he's always going to run with one less in the box, and that helps him.
Matthew Stafford is Mr. Fourth Quarter. Are you guys surprised that was overturned?
No. If you watch it, his knee was already touching the ground when he had possession, and he was being touched at that point, and it was a half yard short. It sucks. It really sucks because they didn't have a timeout to burn with a 10-second runoff. It was one of those things that, man, it was just unfortunate, man. And the only thing I was happy about is he picked Detroit and I picked Atlanta, so I was like, okay, but I was just like, man, that's a crappy way to lose that.
I thought before the game, I was watching the game, I thought it was going to be a blowout, and it looked like that early. But the way Detroit came back and made it close and should have won, in my opinion, I think a lot of people are saying AFC West is the toughest division in football, and I agree. But the NFC North is a very close second with Green Bay, Detroit, and Minnesota. I think Detroit is a playoff team this year and could win that division.
Was they a playoff team last year too?
Yeah. But
Stafford
was
needed to win
all those.
Game. That's what it was.
All those comebacks last year, and he's still looking like that this year, man.
So let me finish on Golden Tate. Golden Tate had 11 targets, 758, and 1 touchdown. Should have been another touchdown, but by 6 inches, they called it back. Marvin Jones, 6 targets, 3 for 24. Thought he might have done a little bit better. Then Ebron, he had 7 targets, dropped about 5 balls, only caught 2 for 9. So the interesting stat of this game Matt Stafford had thrown 309 passes without an interception. He threw 3 of them in 15 plays in this game.
Ooh. I still like Matty Price.
Yeah, that'll work too. And that's all I have in this game.
All right, moving on. This game was something I did not expect, and this was Seattle at Tennessee. Russell Wilson and Mariota both looked good. They both came back, and I'm surprised Tennessee won. This is just, it was a crazy, crazy good game.
They played Seattle football.
Yeah, they manhandled Seattle. Like, I know Russell Wilson had 4 TDs for 373, 7 rushes, 26 yards. He threw 49 times, 29 completions, but like that doesn't tell the story of that game. Like that's,
like the first 17 touches that Tennessee had, they got like 38 yards off of it. So I want to say, like, I was so happy that they just stuck with the run game. And it didn't matter that it wasn't working well at first. They just stuck with it.
Exotic smash.
They trusted their skill players to do.
That's how Tennessee's always been, though.
Most teams, you start out like that, you abandon it, and you just get pass happy. Tennessee did not do that. They stayed with what their strength is, and I love that they did that.
That's good. Their strength is like somebody that we were all worried about, and it was DeMarco Murray. Like, everybody was worried about his hamstring. A 75-yard TD says, "Don't worry about that hamstring no more." Like,
I agree.
Like, it was just like, wow. But Mariota, 10 of 32, 225, 2 TDs. Rushing wise, him and Wilson were just on par. 726 for Wilson, 7 of 27 for Mariota. But Baldwin, Graham, and Richardson all looked good. Richardson, he only had a 30 yards and a TD on two receptions, but he had 7 targets, which, like, he's that number 2 in that offense. And if he would have caught more of those, that game script could have been way different. Then you got Graham, 7 of 11, 72 yards. Looks like what we're starting to hope to see moving forward. Like, he's healthy. If you bought low on him before last week or before this week, that's great. Baldwin, 15 targets, 10 receptions, 105 yards. TD looked good there too. Murray, 14, 115, and a TD. Henry still was featured a little bit. 13 for 54. That's, I believe, 4.2 yards per carry. And then Rashard Matthews is their number 1 target on receiving. 6 of 10, 87, and a TD. Like, I like Rashard Matthews in this offense with Corey Davis out, and I still like him.
I have him on my bench. Let me ask you guys real quick, with DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry, you think Derrick Henry got as many snaps and touches as he did because he's earned it now, and so they're going to split more, or do you think it was still because of DeMarco Murray's injury?
I think it's the exotic smash mouth, and I think that's what they want to do on offense. They want to be the guys that pound the ball, and then think and dunk.
I think the reason why they do it like that is not because one person's earned the job or not. I think they want it to be like that because both, like you said, they're both just those pounding backs, and they want them both to be fresh the whole game. So I think it's kind of like what Houston's trying with alternating drives with Foreman and Miller. I think you can see that moving forward with Murray and Henry, not necessarily alternating drives. I think Murray's going to be the feature. But
I think it's more of an Atlanta, like Devontae Freeman, Tevin Coleman thing.
But neither of them are pass catching.
No, but Murray got some targets, right?
Yeah, they got targets, but I mean, it's nothing of relevance,
nothing
like 2 for 2 type thing.
And none of them has that speed that's really going to blow you away.
Yeah,
either.
But the thing is they just Henry, however, I will say, started off 7 carries for -6 yards. So I mean, it's rough. Like,
something I forgot to bring up in the Chargers Chiefs game, which is going back, but Kareem Hunt last week had 39 touches in his NFL career, had 14 broken tackles. I don't know what the stat is now, but I know that the Chargers were the worst tackling team going into that game, and he broke a lot more tackles.
I think it was 17 broken tackles in his plays.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Yeah. He's blowing people away with
that. It's because people like, and Joey Bosa actually, I was listening to that game, and they were talking about how Joey Bosa was telling his teammates, you can't tackle him up high. You have to wrap his legs up because his legs are huge. They're tree trunks.
There's so much shoulder tackling going on. You've got to wrap them up. You have to.
But that's really it. All I have for Seattle at Tennessee.
So if we're going backwards, let me just correct myself. I said Stafford had 309 passes without an interception. I meant Ryan. Matty Ryan had 309 passes without an interception, and then he had 3 and 5 plays in the game.
I'm still sticking with Matty Price.
Well, it's Matty Ryan this time.
I predicted Matt Ryan to be a top 3 fantasy quarterback in our first episode. He's looking pretty good. I know he's not there right now. I don't think he is.
Mm-mm.
No, but
I don't think he's broke the top 10 once this year.
Really?
Yeah. I can look up weeks.
It's crazy because I don't know that fantasy points wise, but just watching the games, he looks so good.
He's one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, and
they probably just get too many rushing touchdowns. It's Freeman every game.
Yeah, then that affects his numbers. I mean, he's not bad numbers. This week he had 24-35 for 294, 2 touchdowns and 3 picks. That's a good week.
Week 1 he was 10th with 17.9 fantasy points.
So I mean, he's not bad, but I just looking at it from just a football perspective, maybe not fantasy, I guess, but he's going to be in the conversation for MVP again.
Well, my next game probably has the number 1 guy. I'm just guessing. Cincinnati at Green Bay.
Wow.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Philadelphia.
I knew he was talking about
No. Cincinnati at Green Bay.
No.
Andy Dalton, 21 of 27 for 212 and 2 touchdowns. The new offensive coordinator, wanted to get things going, and I think they got it moving in the right direction. They also installed Mixon as the feature back for the most part. 18 carries for 62 yards, 3 targets, caught all 3 for 39 yards. Giovanni Bernard had a little bit of a showing in this game. Carried the ball 3 times for 27 yards, caught all 2 of his targets for 12 yards and a touchdown. They really kept him in the game. A.J. Green, you speak up and you say something and you get the ball. 13 targets, 10 catches for 111 and a touchdown.
That's what they need to do going forward, too.
Yeah, throw it to your best players. Get it to your best players. Let them make plays. The tight end that I want to address is not Eifert, but it's Croft. This kid, it was an emergency starter because Eifert isn't in there. He had 4 targets, caught 3 of them for 28 yards. It's not bad, and if you went cheap in DFS, where I did, still solid points for $2,500 in DFS. Then on to Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers seems to make plays that other quarterbacks can't do. And if you watched any of this game, you could see it. He 28 for 42 for the day, 313, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. I would say it's either him or Brady as number 1 for the quarterback rankings.
It's Brady right now.
I mean, Brady's throwing phenomenal.
Yeah. He's still angry for some reason.
You just can't
beat the defense.
5 touchdowns. You're not going to beat that production fantasy-wise.
It's the bad defenses keeping them doing it. Then we had Ty Montgomery at the running back position, the only guy really to mention here. He struggled. 12 carries for 35 yards, 12 targets, caught 8 of them for 15 yards. Not a great day for Ty Montgomery, but there's better days ahead because he is the running back in Green Bay.
It's great. It's great that it's like not a great day, and yet he still put up double-digit fantasy points. So if that's a bad day, I want Ty Montgomery all day.
Do you try and buy low right now?
100%.
I will if I could. Okay. Jordy Nelson, 9 targets, caught 6 of them for 52, 2 touchdowns. Jordy's one of those playmakers that you love to have on your team.
I would have thought his touchdowns would have been more than like 15 yards out. 1 in 3. Oh my God, guys!
Yeah, it was
cover him. Like
he's going to get the ball. Why don't you double cover him? But the reason why you can't double cover him is because Devontae Adams is there. 6 targets, caught 3 of them for 60 yards. Also dropped 1 that would have been a nice game breaker for them. The other guy I'm going to mention is Geronimo Allison. He came in and took over for Randall Cobb. He had 8 targets, caught 6 of them for 122, and set him up for the game-winning field goal. Martellus Bennett stayed in and blocked almost all day. 4 targets, caught 3 of them for 12 yards. The interesting stat in this game, it was only the second time in Aaron Rodgers' career that he threw a pick 6. It's also Aaron Rodgers' first win in overtime.
Was that at home too? That was in.
It was in Green
Lambeau,
Bay,
right?
Yep.
Yeah. And he doesn't throw interceptions at Lambeau, so that was just a bad play.
It was an easy one. He kind of broadcasted that right to the defensive guy and he picked it off and took it back. And that's all I got for this game.
All right. I'll do Oakland at Redskins Sunday Night Football real quick. So I don't know if it was from traveling west to east, they say that's the thing. I guess this was just an anomaly for me for Oakland. This isn't what we should expect all year. You don't panic on anybody. You don't sell Derek Carr. You don't get rid of Jared Cook if you have him because you're shallow there, even though he had a good game. You don't get rid of Lynch. You don't get rid of Crabtree. You don't get rid of Cooper. I know if you're a Cooper owner, you're freaking out. This is 2 weeks in a row, single-digit points, and you drafted him really high. I don't think you get rid of him. I know he's not going to be that red zone guy, but actually, I wanted to sell high on Marshawn Lynch last week. He's probably the only guy I panic on here because now that he's had a bad game, I probably won't get good value for him because I just don't like his workload. Like 6 attempts this week, like 12 last week, and week 1 was his most at 18. But I'm really not liking that workload, even though he's been doing good things with what he's been getting. So, just an anomaly here. I wouldn't worry about it. Let's go to the Redskins. Kirk Cousins had a day, 28 fantasy points. Or, I'm sorry, 32 fantasy points. 25 for 30, 365, and 3 touchdowns. 1 rush, 2 yards. Nothing there. I want both backs in the backfield here. I want Samaje Perine and I want Thompson. Thompson, 3 weeks now, 3 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
So you gotta love that. 7 targets, 6 receptions, 150 yards, and a touchdown in the passing game. 8 rushes for 38. Perine, though, is he's the workhorse. He's getting the 19 rushes a game. He didn't do anything with it here, 49 yards, but he had a catch for a yard. I still want Perine for me if I can't get Thompson. Just maybe as a flex play every now and then with a good matchup.
Perine got hurt in this game too. Just something to watch out for.
Yeah.
Vernon Davis did great with Jordan Reed out. 5 targets, 5 receptions, 58 yards, and a touchdown. Jamison Crowder looked like the number 1 guy. 6 targets, 6 receptions, 52 yards. So still double digits. The big thing for me here is Terrell Pryor. Like if there was ever a game to have a big day, this was it. He only had 4 targets for 2 receptions, 19 yards, and not a great start to his career as a Redskin. What do you guys think? Is he droppable or tradable, or what do you?
You're not going to drop him just because of how much capital you spend into him, but I mean, I'm not buying low on him. He hasn't shown me anything.
I'm not sure capital means anything. Like people put too much stock in draft value when the season has already started for me, like that. Because Cam Newton, for example, he got drafted high, right? To me, he's 100% droppable.
Yeah, and well, here's the thing, right? If you have an opportunity to try and trade for somebody, do that first. And then if you can't find a guy go and drop him. But I'm always going to try and get something before I drop him. And to me, Pryor still has some value. There's still somebody out there who will believe in Pryor and his talent.
Yeah. To me, though, like, I hate it when like you try to make trade offers or someone. They're like, I'm not going to trade my 2nd round pick for your 5th round pick. We're 3 weeks in the season. My guy is way outperforming yours.
Yep.
Let's talk about what is actually happening instead of what should have happened.
All right, I got a twist for you. Let's do like a little. Who do you keep between these two, or who do you want between these two? Martavis Bryant or Terrell Pryor?
Martavis Bryant. He's got way more upside to me.
See, and this is where I think...
I feel like this is a 50-50 one.
Yeah, I still like Pryor's talent. I still believe in him. And the only problem I would have is I would always try and have to figure out which week Martavis Bryant is going to get the targets, the long catches, the touchdowns, where I think Pryor, when he gets comfortable with Cousins, I think it'll start clicking at some point.
I was like, right now, Martavis Bryant has more fantasy points over the season than Terrell Pryor by a decent margin.
Yeah, I wasn't panicking on Pryor until this week. Like if they it's 3 weeks in a row now. Like your whole team put up big points. They should have been up 50 points. It was 27-10 was the final. So I mean, but 4 targets, 2 receptions, 19 yards is not startable, and he hasn't been startable once this year. So
no, he's starting a guy that I'm going to start sitting in my leagues that I have him in.
He plays against Kansas City next week. That's not a good matchup either. But they do throw a lot of yards against Casey. Casey allows a lot of passing yards. If he doesn't put up yards there, I would really, really panic on Terrell Pryor. But that's all I have for that game.
I would think that Kirk Cousins going forward is a good play, and Chris Thompson going forward is a good play because they both keep each other involved in a game. Thompson has that breakaway speed, and he'll catch balls out of the backfield. And, Cousins is going to start leaning on him a little bit more, I think, going forward.
You think he gets more Ryan's touches?
No, I think Thompson has his own role and his own set of plays, and that's his.
That's why I like keeping Ryan too. Like if
it's like a Danny Woodhead, or
because he was picked up last week. Ryan's still available in those leagues. He's an ad for me this week.
Yeah, it's
I
one of those.
Brought him up last week too.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where you got the pounder and then you got the PPR back. Same thing in Chicago, the same thing in Baltimore. If you don't have that one complete back, you need to have two that do the opposite thing. Just how I see it.
Strength and weaknesses.
Yeah.
Got to capitalize on that. All right, last game on the list. Giants at Philadelphia. Home opener for the Eagles. This was an interesting game. Doug Peterson almost lost us the game for Philadelphia. It was 4th and 6, I believe, and he decided to go for it when he was on the Giants side of the field when we were up 14-0, and Carson Wentz gets a 8-yard sack. So it's one of those things like...
You mean towards their end zone? Like you were on...
We were on their 42. Like we were on...
Bad. If you're across the 50.
No, we weren't across the 50 yet.
So that's your side of the field.
Okay, our side of the field.
Yeah.
And it was a bad play call. We should have punted it or anything else.
4th and 6 he went for it?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was just, it was ballsy, and I didn't like it because then what happened after that? They score a touchdown. Next drive, we get the ball back. First play, Zach Ertz fumbles it. They score a touchdown on that drive as well when they recover it. But they didn't score until the fourth quarter. The Giants came back and scored 21 points in the fourth quarter. It was it wasn't garbage time because it was still a game, and they were up. But then the Eagles came back and they won. They were down 14-21, came back. Corey Clement, 15-yard rushing touchdown. Interesting thing, though, is Manning didn't look good, but we didn't get a single sack on him. We just weren't rushing the passer. I think we were too worried about Odell Beckham. Manning, 35 of 47, 336, 3 TDs, 2 interceptions. Their team as a whole for rushing was 17 of 49. So
it's weird because Manning should have been hit at least 10 times in that game.
Yeah, easily.
Philly has one of the best defensive fronts in all of football.
Yeah. Then Sterling Shepard was the star, in my opinion, on that side of the ball because he was just how well he was featured and how clutch he was when they needed him to be clutch. Yeah, Beckham had 2 touchdowns on 13 targets and 9 receptions, 79 yards, 2 TDs. Sterling Shepard, 7 targets, 10 receptions, 133 and a touchdown. He is available, I believe, in 65% of leagues right now.
Yeah, and what's crazy is he even had a big week 1 when they struggled and put up 0 points. So,
yeah,
to me, even with that offense struggling and just wanting to stay away from it, I want Sterling Shepard and I want Odell.
Yeah, and then Brandon Marshall actually got featured quite a bit. 11 targets, 8 receptions, 66 yards. And then Evan Ingram, 5 of 7, 45 yards. I still like Ingram going forward. He did well in this matchup. Another interesting thing, though, for Philadelphia, Carson Wentz, through the first 2 weeks, 40-plus passes. This week, 31 passes, 21 completions, 176 TD, no turnovers, 6 rushes, 22 yards. It was interesting to me that they didn't pass so much. They actually were trying to run the ball, and unfortunately, we lost Darren Sproles. Adam Rice pointed out he didn't fumble on this play, but on the same play, he tore his ACL and broke his arm. And
definition of a tough guy right there.
And it sucks to lose somebody like him because I know he's small, but he's even a great pass blocker. This guy, there's plays last week that I saw him. He had blocked 2 people on the same play. He chip blocked one person, and then the guard grabbed him, and then he grabbed the other guy, stopping him before he got to Wentz. And I was just like, wow. I was like, I never realized how essential he was to our offense, but we lost him for the season. I think he's probably going to retire after this. This was his last year on his contract. I hate to see him go out like that. He's always been a competitor, but, I mean, being this old, there's not a lot you can come back from.
He's still so fast, too.
Yeah.
It's crazy to see him, pass blocking how he was last week.
So this brings me to Wendell Smallwood and LeGarrette Blount. Wendell Smallwood, 12 carries, 71 yards. Looks like the feature back now. Blount, 12 carries, 67 yards and a TD. Blount looked good. And I was just like, wow, is this what we can see moving forward? Are we actually going to have a running game? And I think, God forbid that Sproles got hurt. I think this is also going to help us clear up our backfield because at the beginning of the season, we had 5 running backs. Now we have 3. Donnell Pumphrey tore his hamstring last week in practice, and then Sproles now out for season. So I think you're going to see Smallwood and Blount as a 1-2 punch, and I think Blount's just going to be the goal line back, and I think you can see and maybe third down, and I think you can see or third and short. And then I think you see Smallwood as the feature back, and I think that kind of helps us so that way we know who we're going with, and we can actually, our running back coach can feature one guy more so than the other.
I agree 100%. And for me, Wendell Smallwood is the number one ad for me.
Yeah, he's my number one as well.
Yeah, me too. The one question I do have on this is, it seemed like the Philadelphia offense wanted to run the ball. They wanted to pound it and pound it and pound it.
I wonder if it's because of how good the Giants' secondary is. Because they have Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie and Janoris Jenkins, probably the best cornerback duo in the league next to Aqib Talib and Chris Harris. Like, they're just crazy good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they shut down everybody they face, which brought me to another person. Alshon Jeffrey still second in the team on targets this week. Caught 4 of 8 for 56. I didn't think he was going to be targeted that much just because of the game the game script. And then Zach Ertz, I was wrong, guys. He did not get 90 yards. He was 8 for 10, so there's 8 receptions right there, 55 yards and a TD. I'm just saying that's still top 2 tight ends this week behind Gronk. Like, that's I'm keeping that all day long. And I have to give a shout out to my hero. This guy is the superhero for the Eagles, right? Jake Elliott, rookie kicker, signed off a Bengals practice squad, 61-yard field goal when Carson Wentz made this pass to Alshon Jeffrey out of bounds, putting us 61 yards out from the field goal. Jake Elliott went up to Doug Peterson, and I was watching the interview today, and he was like, I just looked him in the eye, I was like, Coach, I can do this. And Peterson, I guess, was like, are you sure? He's like, I'm gonna make it.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
And he just went out and so Peterson I guess was just gonna just try and do a deep ball, and he's like, all right, take it. And then Carson Wentz on the sideline, you could actually hear him mic'd up. He's like, if he makes this, he's a superhero. And then you see all the team kneeling down and praying. You got LeGarrette Blount with Jason Peters sitting down like kneeling, praying, hoping he makes it. They're all locked in arms watching him do it. And then it's just going and going and going. And just barely in on the right corner of the upright, just barely inside. Just oh my God! Odell Beckham was back there in the end zone, ready to try and get essentially a kick return on this, and he nailed it. Looked great, and there was a heartfelt moment. This was again the second game he's ever played in his NFL career, first one at home, but also the first game that his parents got to go to.
Did you see the reaction?
Yeah, they were almost in tears.
His dad was.
Yeah, and I was just
awesome.
And they were just so proud of their son. I was like, man, that's great. I know Caleb Sturgis got hurt, but I love seeing something like that happen. He came in a clutch moment. Nobody expected him to make it. I was like, come on.
The fact that he called his shot to me is impressive.
From practice squad to kicking a 61-yard game winner, he is a cult.
Yeah,
he's a cult hero now in Philly.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I'm just like, man, this kid just. Man, they're going to name a sandwich after him in there.
Yeah.
But that's all I got for all my games. And like I said, just great shout out to Jake Elliott for winning us the game and not letting it go to overtime.
I got a couple of injuries or notes or news and notes, whatever you want to call it. So through week 4, we have 2 undefeated teams, Atlanta and Kansas City.
Let's go, Chiefs.
That's from the 816.
Yep.
So we got Doug Baldwin, hurt his groin, keep an eye out. Darren Sproles, we mentioned, broken arm, ACL. Melvin Gordon hurt his knee, should be okay, but keep an eye on. Kelvin Benjamin, not a serious knee injury, still don't know the details on that. Matt Forte hurt his toe, might be an uptick for Bilal Powell. Crabtree took a shot to the chest, and that put him out of the game. We don't know any details yet. Rob Kelly hurt his rib. Randall Cobb still has shoulder issues. Tyler Eifert, they're saying it's going to be a multi-week injury designation, might not play for a few weeks. Jordan Reed also hurt his chest, and I believe his shoulder is also banged up. And that's the majority of the news and notes that I have.
Well, let's get to Real and Mirage, and then we'll hit waiver wire, guys. All right, Real, Cam Newton. I think we already know the answer to this.
Real.
Yeah, I think the struggle is real. I think that's what we're going to see going forward now.
I completely agree. I'll drop him. All right, Mirage, the Miami offense. Is it Mirage or is it Real? I have them as Mirage. I think they're going forward. They're going to be a real offense again.
Talking about this week, yeah, Mirage. I think Ajayi is going to get way more touches. They were just down. And they're not going to depend on Jay Cutler to throw the ball so much. But, yeah, I like that offense. And I don't know how you lose the Jets. but it's a division game. Who knows?
All right, what about the Jets? Are they real or Mirage?
That's Mirage all the way.
Okay.
They're not a good team.
I still don't even like Bilal Powell, and I know I'm in the minority on this one, but I wouldn't even want to own him. So,
all right, another one, Trevor Siemian.
Mirage for this week. I like him going forward, especially in a year with bad quarterback play. I'd maybe buy low on him.
I like that. I agree with it.
See, Simeon to me is a guy that if he stays within the game plan, he's fine. When he has to do something outside of it, like move around the pocket and throw the ball, I think that's where he starts to struggle. So if they get a clean pocket and a good running game, he's good on the pass action plays.
And I love how good the defense is. It keeps that offense on the field, and you've got two stud receivers. I like Simeon moving forward.
All right. The Minnesota offense with Case Keenum.
I think it's real.
I think it's real too, and Tampa Bay's defense is really underrated.
Yeah, it's not a joke defense for Tampa Bay.
Yeah, so I mean, them doing what they did is impressive, and to me, it just really stabilizes Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, Kyle Rudolph, Dalvin Cook. Wasn't a question for me, but you gotta love what you saw. There's no way.
All right, Jordan Howard and Tariq Cohen as a 1-2 punch.
I said you could start both of them, so I think they're real. I think that we might not see the 23 carries from 2 touchdowns every week, but 60 and a touch is good enough for Jordan Howard.
You're gonna get that end zone value from Howard. You're gonna get the PPR value from Cohen. I love them both.
Now, in 2 different weeks, Pittsburgh has had tough games and games they should have had easy wins. Real or Mirage? They were both road games too, against the Browns and against the Bears.
That's the Pittsburgh struggle on the road.
But, I mean, almost losing to the Browns in week 1, man.
Yeah, but that was the week that Bell didn't get, really many touches. And the ones he didn't do anything with, so I guess maybe that's why they went away, or maybe they were punishing him for his holdout. But I'm not going to panic on that offense. There's just too many weapons. I think they figure it out.
All right. Duke Johnson over Isaiah Crowell rest of the season.
I think that's one of those situations where Duke is going to be involved in a passing game. They could spread him out into the slot, let him do there, and then he can move in and catch balls. I mean, run the ball, not just catch balls. So
you're taking Duke Johnson over Crowell rest of the season?
Yeah, I think he finishes with better numbers, especially in PPR.
On everything. I agree too.
Austin Seferian-Jenkins rest of the season, top 15 tight end.
Mirage, and I know it's a shallow division. I love the kid's talent. But I want zero part of that offense. Well, I'm not saying he doesn't finish outside it. Well, that's borderline for me.
But I feel like that's the mark. So
personally,
I think 15 is about right for him.
I agree. But I want no part of that offense. And I know I was told by you, actually, to pick him up this week, start him, and he had a good week. But nope.
He had a serviceable week with, a lot of tight end injuries. Like, that's the reason why I was saying, hey, this is a streamer. I picked him up because Gronk had a questionable tag on him, and I know he's injury prone, so I was like, well, if Gronk goes out, I need some tight end. All right, well, I think that's about all I got for Real and Mirage for me. Anybody else got anything?
I got one. Where do you put the Baltimore offense? Do you think they're going to be as bad as what we saw, or do you think they're going to improve?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think they should have signed Colin Kaepernick when they had the chance.
They went up against a great defense, but they haven't looked good all year against,
it's
Cleveland
Joe
the Bengals
Flacco's
either.
The problem. He just, he tied the fact
okay, so let's talk about this, because I watched that whole game. That first half, there must have been 7 or 8 drop balls by his receivers and his running backs. So I was, blown away at how much, the balls were there. He was just, there was a lot of drops, even by, guys like Wallace and Macklin, who you expect to catch the ball when it comes their way. So I wouldn't.
I think they had the wrong cleats on.
I don't think Flacco was the problem this week. I'm not saying he's not the problem going forward, even though, I'm -3 fantasy points, but there was a lot of drops this week.
I think they had the wrong cleats on over there. That's what they were complaining about to the refs.
Well, they were complaining that they didn't get to see the field until game day.
Yeah.
So that's would be upsetting too.
Here's an interesting thing. Right now, aside from a 130-yard rush for Ezekiel Elliott on the game going on right now, he is 8 for 30, I believe, is what his stat line is. If he has another tough week, he had 130-yard rush, so, I'm just saying, and he's 8 for 31. So, let's say he doesn't even break 10 fantasy points this week. what do you offer to get for him or to get him? Like,
well, you got to remember that the defenses that he's facing are really, really good against stopping the run, and I believe everything
Cardinals
eases
got
up.
Destroyed though.
I would offer Michael Thomas, who just had a good week, but I'm not sure that would be accepted.
You also got to remember that Zeke could still face a suspension in 2 weeks, I believe.
Yeah, he's safe
weeks.
through 2 more weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, so you got to worry about that.
But
I don't think so either.
I'm just saying, like, now, if you're gonna buy low on him, like, now would be the time.
Yeah, no, I agree completely.
All right, let's get into waiver wire. We've been running long, so
number 1 has to be Wendell Smallwood, right?
Wendell Smallwood.
Wendell Smallwood, yeah, I agree. Smallwood number 1.
Moving forward.
All right, number 2, I got Sterling Shepard.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, even in the bad weeks, he's looked good.
Yeah, I think he has 7 catches through each and every week.
Yeah, week 2 he didn't do anything, but I mean they've been struggling.
All right, who do you got at 3, Tom?
I got Duke Johnson, number 3.
I love that. That's a good one.
Yeah, I think that going forward, he's going to be a guy that gets more and more involved. Each week, he's had at least 7 touches. So, I mean, that's pretty solid out of a guy you can get up off the waiver wire.
I'm going to be a little contrarian, and I'm going to go Jamal Charles at number 3.
I like that. I like Marquise Lee. He's owned in 33.5% of ESPN leagues, so really low ownage percentage. And I'm buying into that offense. I like the changes with the coach and Tom Coughlin. I think everyone's stacking that box and daring Bortles to beat him, and he's doing it. And I like Marquise Lee here.
It's the first time he's been healthy since he got drafted in his rookie year. And in his rookie year, he didn't even play a game.
Even in deep leagues, this guy's available. And for me, if you're struggling at wide receiver,
11 catches for 141 yards, 12.8 average.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. All right. Who you got next?
I got.
Oh yeah, that was.
It don't matter.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I got Vernon Davis.
All right.
Reed. This is a surprising stat. I actually thought it was more, but he averages 4 missed games this season. I actually thought it was more than that. But this guy's so injury prone. He's at it again with his chest and maybe his shoulder. So I like Vernon Davis. I think maybe Reed stays out a little bit longer, and if not, I don't think it's long till he's hurt again. And Vernon Davis looked good. Didn't he? He looked
like he
really
actually looked like a scat back on one play.
Yeah,
like he put some people on skates. I
was really shocked. He's 33 years old now, but he didn't look it. And I like Vernon Davis. Maybe Reed comes back this week. That's what they're saying, but I don't think it's going to be for long. And when you really need tight ends,
I'm actually going to stick with the tight end spot, and it's somebody I've been harping on for 3 weeks now, guys, or 2 weeks now. Charles Clay. He's still available in 60% of leagues.
He's the number 1 option in Buffalo.
Yeah, and any time the ball goes out, it's going to Charles Clay or getting close to him. So
outside of LeSean McCoy, obviously, but I mean, as far as receivers, I mean, you can't even. There's no one. It's not Zay Jones. Yeah. It's not Jordan Matthews. It's Charles Clay is his guy.
Yeah, safety blanket.
I got one at quarterback, Jared Goff.
I like Goff.
After his performance this week,
Anthony just looked at us like, you mother.
817 yards passing, 5 touchdowns and 1 interception, completing 70% of his passes. The only question I see is his schedule going forward gets a little bit tougher. Dallas, Seattle, Jacksonville for his next 3. But if you're going to get rid of Cam Newton, Jared Goff could step in and lead your team.
All right, I'm actually going to stick with the QB spot too and go Blake Bortles. Available in 90% of leagues right now.
I would not draft Blake Bortles after one. Like, I know I just said I'm buying in and I'm in on that offense, but
I'm just saying he's always been.
Unless it's a 2 QB league, I don't draft Blake Bortles. If it's 2 QB league, I would absolutely.
All right.
Well, we already talked about it. My last one was Trevor Siemian.
Okay.
And he's the number 2 QB heading into this week. I'm sure he's dropped since then, but I still love this guy. I love how often that offense is going to be on the field. I love his weapons, and I love the smart decision making. Everyone on this team is buying into him as the leader. They're all raving about him. So I mean, I love the guy. I mean, I hate him, fucking Denver Ponies, but I like him in fantasy for sure. I was upset because I waited. I was trying to trade Cousins, and I was in talks with someone about it, like Cousins for like Jason Witten, because I was struggling at tight end. And so we were close to finalizing the deal, and then someone picked up Siemian. And if I didn't get that deal, I was going to drop Cousins for Siemian.
That's how you got to work it. Figure it out. There's always a guy that can replace somebody on your team.
I was so mad. I actually went to do it because it didn't look like the trade was going through, and then it was gone.
Most of the times I send a trade out, like if I'm doing like a 2-for-1 and all that, I promise you, I already have somebody I want to pick up. Like that's why I want the trade. Like it's more about my waiver.
My guy was Siemian.
Yeah,
yep, I do the same thing.
Next up, I actually have Rashard Matthews.
Is he not owned that much?
Doesn't have a high ownership percentage.
He looked real good week 1 as far as his targets.
Here's the weird thing about Rashard Matthews, right? He's on the team, and he is the number one, but they don't seem to want him as their number one wide receiver.
I don't understand it.
You know what blows me away is Eric Decker is owned in 99% of ESPN leagues, and Rashard Matthews is.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Rashard Matthews is the number one guy.
Yeah, but it just seems to me that they're always trying to replace Rashard Matthews with somebody better, but Rashard Matthews just keeps putting up touchdowns and numbers and getting catches and making plays.
Yeah, he did it on my bench this week.
Yeah. It's another one of those weird things where you never know, can I start him for sure? Is he going to get me 6 for 60 and a touchdown, or is he only going to get two catches this week?
Yeah, it's with that run-first offense, you just never know. He's going to put up a dud or he's going to put up good numbers. But he's definitely a pickup if you need good receiver.
I got one. Paul Richardson, wide receiver for Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
If Doug Baldwin misses any time, I think this is the guy that's going to get the uptick.
I don't even think you have to worry about Doug Baldwin missing time. Paul Richardson's on the field for the majority of their snaps, and he's getting targets.
He has more targets than Tyler Lockett, and he has 2 less than Jimmy Graham. He's always involved in the game plays. He's going to be there. On the season, he's got 8 catches for 108 and 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, going forward, if Doug Baldwin's hurt, they just move this guy in, and he could take over and make plays.
Yeah. Next up, I got Robbie Anderson.
Jets.
I'm just saying, like, deep leagues, I'll add him. Like, he's worth an ad.
To that note, I'll take Deontay Foreman in Houston. I think it's only a matter of time before Lamar Miller gets relegated to just a PPR guy, and this guy starts taking over.
Lastly, I actually have Brandon Oliver.
Just for injury's sake?
Yep.
I was wrong about Hogan. I thought he would. I don't know where I read it. It must have been for someone else. I thought he was available like 40% of leagues or something. Like only owned 6%. I was wrong. He's owned 99%. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Except for the league I dropped him.
So yeah.
I'm that 0.01.
Yeah. So I already got a waiver in for him this week too.
I picked him up last week off a waiver wire, and he's going to win me a week just for a pickup, which I think is amazing.
Yeah.
The last guy I just want to note real quick going forward is Andy Dalton. You know, he could also be a replacement for Cam Newton, especially if the new offensive coordinator gets things moving in the right direction. He's got an easier schedule. He's got Cleveland and Buffalo coming up. I think that he could use those 2 games to get right and get going in the right direction.
Well, Buffalo's look real tough, though.
Well, yeah.
It's Newton, Simeon, but did they play week 1? I don't even know, but.
And then he's got a bye week to get after Buffalo. So I think going forward, he's a guy you keep an eye on, and if you really want to make a move, make a move.
They played the Jets week 1?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it was the Jets. And it didn't look good. Sorry.
And real quick, let me just run down the name of teams that won this week and messed everything up in the world of fantasy football. Jacksonville in London, the Jets in New York City, Chicago in Chicago, Buffalo in Buffalo, New Orleans in Carolina, Indy in Indy, and Washington in Indy. I believe all those teams were underdogs going into that game.
The Saints were underdogs against Carolina?
I'm almost positive, yeah.
They 100% were. It was like a 3.5 spread.
Yeah.
Man, that's
3.5 spread, yeah. Yeah, I actually, I picked New Orleans to win this week. But, I mean, they're going to get a few. And,
yeah.
All right, guys, thanks for joining us here. That's all we have. Sacko to Shiva, episode 10. Thanks for joining us. Sorry we went a little long, but we got timestamps, so we're fine. We're going to probably be going to the Chiefs game next week, so we'll let you know when next week's episode will come out as far as recaps. We'll keep you guys updated. Make sure to check out Markout Wrestling. We're having so much fun over there. We're not really getting the views we want, but we think that'll change when we get to Stitcher. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at 816 Podcasting. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate all the love. Keep it going.